What's up, guys? Dave, Duncan Kyle back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. For this review, Duncan Kyle and I have been checking out the new album from UK filth bringers Conjurer. The band's new album, Pathos, will be released on July 1st via Nuclear Blast Records. So, album number 2 from Conjurer, which follows up their 2018 debut, Mire. The drums, bass and guitars were recorded at Priory Recording Studios by Gojira, I think.
Nailed it.
And also Greg Chandler. Guitars, vocals, mandolin and noise recorded at Excalibur Cottage by Mr. Farah as well. Additional samples and keys recorded at Excalibur Cottage and Kitchen Studios by Jan Kraus and Connor Marshall. Additional vocals on All You Will Remember performed by Alice Zawadzki, recorded at Vanguard Studios Hackney by Sam Crow. The album was engineered by Dohi Farah and then mixed and mastered by Will Putney at Graph.
Oh, that Putney shine on it.
Okay, so Conjurer, gentlemen. Listen, Mire was a fantastic album. Like, shouldn't have been that good for a debut. Should not have been that good. Not surprised that they then got snapped up by Nuclear Blast after that release. Nuclear Blast might be on the old prowl just now. They're just like picking up all the bands,
like they have that
bands.
Midas touch. Everything they're touching at the moment, I am 100% into.
Yeah.
So,
the band also went on some killer tours since that album, really kind of putting themselves on the map. So this one was always going to be the kind of interesting one, to see if they could pull this off a second time and possibly even try and outdo their debut Mire. I was excited to hear this. Definitely excited to hear this. I think Conjurer are one of those bands in the UK that, when you mention them to other kind of like metalheads, they're like, oh yeah, Conjurer, yeah. Everyone knows, who Conjurer are from that first album, really. And from what I could gather online, a lot of people were really excited to hear this album. This album, again, like this album has the kind of twists and the turns that you would want and expect to hear from Conjurer. It's varied as hell. Like when it comes to kind of texture and tempo and rhythm, it's got the slow kind of caustic sludge. It's got the kind of like a savage kind of hardcore streak. It's got the thick, almost like post metal. It's also got that kind of abrasive kind of black metal attack at times as well. It also has these huge kind of sprawling clean sections that are interwoven with all that heaviness to give the album that kind of light and shade. And I absolutely loved that about this album. Tracks like All You Will Remember or Basilisk, they will take you on this mammoth kind of journey of colossal riffs, really discordant grooves, but they are like interspersed with these moments that are almost feel like uplifting, still crushingly heavy, but the kind of these uplifting chords and leads, they're cleverly placed to have that kind of maximum impact. At times when I was listening, I was like, it kind of reminded me of like kind of older the Contortionist, and not that they sound like similar bands, because they're very different bands, but just the way that they kind of mix that kind of lightness with the kind of crushingly heavy. Devil Sold His Soul do a similar thing as well. Again, don't sound the same, but a kind of similar idea. So when I was listening to something and like all the elements are here, all the elements that you're hoping for from Conjurer are here in this album. However, what makes this even better than Mire is almost like the kind of architecture of the whole album. This is so well constructed, like the even more attention to detail, even more inventive than Mire was, and the riffs. Oh my god. The riffs are somehow even bigger on Pathos. just there are moments on this album that are just ridiculous. Like the riff at the end of Rot, which I think is track 2.
Yeah.
That is just pure. That is just stank face.
It's ugly. It's ugly as fuck. Yeah.
Stanking. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stanking.
It's you've been out on
wow.
the town all night. You've been drinking to excess, and you've went home. You thought you've pulled a good one. You wake up in the morning, those beer goggles off, and that is how ugly that riff is. Oh yeah, fucker.
Yeah, and the album is scattered with them. Like there are lots of moments in this album that you're like, oh my god, that is like just filth. And you know, like the murkiness in general of this album just feels like a kind of level up from Meyer. And Meyer was heavy as fuck, don't get me wrong, but this feels like Meyer was slightly less dissonant in the production than Pathos. The guitars in this album in particular sound disgusting. Like almost in that kind of, they remind me of almost like a Arm for Apocalypse. That type of sound, you know, especially like their second album, The Road Will End. Just it has this density to it, like just unbelievably heavy and thick. And you know, not a bad thing because I love Arm for Apocalypse. I love that band. But there wasn't a moment on this album where I switched off, like where I was bored or I was zoning out. There are just so many parts of every song that will just kind of grab you by the throat and demand your attention. There's just so much on offer here that the variety of textures and styles is just fantastic. You never feel like, I never felt one point at this that they were phoning it in or just like, we'll just revisit the, you know, similar ground to before. You can feel the passion, you can feel the hostility in every track, like from the kind of the power of the drum hits to the utterly vitriolic vocal delivery. Like some of the screams on this, like just there's a track called Those Years Condemned, and the vocals are just really abrasive, like especially when he moves into that kind of higher register, just insane. But then there's also moments on this where he brings in really cool melody, like on All You Will Remember. Just like that bit of melody was just a breath of fresh air I felt on the album. It was just absolutely perfect. And I was thinking about this. I think touring with all those like different bands over the last like 4 or 5 years has made such a big difference to this band's approach. Like you look at like touring with bands like Celeste or Conan or Rivers of Nile or Will Haven even, and they sound like they've just leveled up. Like, and I think that sometimes happens, like when you put a band in a situation where they're surrounded with all these other bands that have years and years of experience, you can't help but like be inspired by them and just kind of want to push yourself to that level. And I think that's what's partly kind of happened here, along with the band obviously growing as musicians and songwriters. I think they've just kind of adapted and just kind of pushed themselves to that next level. They sound the tightest they have ever sounded. The arrangements, the songwriting is just fantastic. The whole delivery of the album just feels more extensive. I was just loving this from start to finish, to be honest. I think they have done an absolutely fantastic job on Pathos. Just hugely impressed. And I was impressed by Meyer, but I think they have taken it to that next stage on this album. What about you guys? What do you think, Duncan? What do you think of Pathos?
So I liked Meyer. I thought Meyer was a really, really good album. It's one of those ones that when I heard it, I was like, that right, these guys are on my radar. And it was that kind of, I wonder what they're going to do next. Fuck me sideways. So they picked the right title for this. Like Pathos is, especially used this way, is the Greek word for suffering. So, and this album is just full of it. Oh my good God Almighty! The biggest point for me on this one, and that without even starting to talk about how fucking incredible this sounds, is a key point that you mentioned about the architecture. The blueprint of this album is magnificent. This is how you structure an album, ladies and gents. This is the attention to detail between exactly when to switch the next song in. So It Dwells, like manky, disgusting, like just nasty piece of work. rot. It does exactly what it says on the tin. Especially towards the end, you're getting like one of the stankest stank riffs that ever stanked right at the end. And then all you remember, the third track kicks in with melody. So the code switch straight away. So they're already aware that you've had about 14 minutes of bleak, like dystopian, sludgy, doomy, textured like rankness, and then they hit you with this melody, like almost right off the bat, which had like instantly put me on the back foot because I just was not expecting it at all. And by the end of that track, I'm sure that's the track that has the guest vocals in it as well, so you get this female vocal that comes in, and it works really, really, really well because they build back in with the male vocals first and then into the female vocals at the end. But they don't rest on their laurels there. Basilisk takes a different tact. Those Years Condemned is, I mean, fucking hairs on my arm standing up listening to that. But that track is deliberately slow. It's a deliberately slow. It puts you in the mindset of pain and suffering. And then Suffer Alone kicks in, and it is the shortest song on it. This one hits you breakneck speed. So once again,
so good.
Code switch on the pacing, hits you with it. It's just visceral and tense. And then they switch back into In Your Wake before closing out with Cracks in the Pyre, which is a fucking incredible closer. Vocally, I love this. It switches somewhere from a kind of really intense, kind of gnarly black metal to almost like a level of kind of mid-range, kind of like screamo. It sits at like it's very unpleasant to listen to, but it fits the music entirely. The guitar sound for a start is fucking ridiculous, but the riffing is just incredible. This album reaches for space, it reaches for elements, it reaches for texture and tone, but always has that base level of threat that at any point it'll switch and what you hear is just the most abrasive thing you've heard this year. And it's like a secret weapon that they don't overuse on this, and that's not to say that they don't play heavy shit. The album is predominantly heavy. It's just an extra level that they seem to be able to just drop into, and they know exactly when to do it. And that's, I mean, the major label, this is them embarking on that, the instinct might be to overplay that, and they don't do that. And that to me shows like wisdom beyond their years as a band. Like, to be on album number 2 and already be aware of what they're doing, like spatially with their music, is kind of phenomenal. And then you add other elements on top of that as well, which is the production, which is fucking great. Very raw, very natural. And at times almost overwhelming, but never to the point where like there are a couple of tracks in here where the guitars and the drums are so intense in the mix and so in your face, is that kind of tinge of the black metal where it almost becomes you like if it goes up 1 decibel more it's just going to be distorted and unlistenable. But they managed to keep it right there. It is so impressive. I mean, just like genuinely jaw-dropping. And like a lot of the bands you mentioned, they're definitely in there. And what makes a lot of sense from the bands you've listed out there is each of them are bands that are almost kind of not forefathers per se, but kind of founders of a sound.
Yeah.
Like when you're mentioning like bands specifically like Rivers of Nile, or you mentioned something like Conan, but specifically Will Haven. I know I've spent a lot of time in the last 2.5 years talking about how everyone just seems to be influenced by the Deftones now, because they do. Surprising how many bands are actually influenced by Will Haven.
Yeah.
Which, same area, regular touring buddies and friends with the Deftones. Both of them are basically opposite sides of the same coin. They just like use extremity in different ways. And I'm hearing a lot of bands now that are bringing those hardcore elements in, but doing it in a Will Haven style, as opposed to... And Will Haven, whether you love them or loathe them, and they have an album coming out this year, and I am erect for it. And a band that do dissonance and despair and darkness unlike any other band on the planet. They're a band that managed to mix like horrible atmosphere into his sound that is just deeply unpleasant, but like, you know, you can't take your eyes off it. And Conjurer seem to have adopted those elements in here. The guitars are never as heavy as, they're never as detuned as Willhaven, but they managed to get those dissonant sounds like encapsulated. Like, rarely am I in awe of a band like releasing a second album. To me, second albums are usually when bands either just try and do the first album again because it sold really well, or like, actually this was our sound all along. That other one was just to get us on the record label. This one here is, in a lot of respects, it's like Meyer leveled up in every facet of that album. I don't feel on here that I'm like, well, you know, they're missing that trick that they had on the... No. As they've built upon everything, they've evolved it up like a Pokemon. Like, they've evolved to the next stage of their Pokemon. Like, first stage was Meyer, second stage is Pathos. If their third album isn't called Pikachu, I'm out. But no, it's like it's a clear evolution in the sound, and you can chart it back. This isn't a band that have like sold out to be in a bigger label, or now trying to had a label influence to change their sound. Very much like what Nuclear Blast have done with almost every release in 2022, is they picked a band, put them on the label, and then that band have delivered arguably some of the best material that they've ever done. It's a fit that works so well. I'm glad they're on a label this size. I can't wait to fucking see this album live. This to me is a contender this year. Like, I think this is fucking great. Very, very excited. And I was very late to the listen on this one. In that I forgot that we were recording tonight, so it got condensed into a few days worth of listening. But every time I listened to this, there was another element where I was just like, fuck me, that's really clever, or, you know, like, that's just like so heavy, or, you know, I still can't work out how you got the song there, but that's where it always deserved to be, and it was me that was lost, not you. Conjurer are the real fucking deal. Yep. And Pathos, however you want to pronounce it. If this doesn't get them on the map, this is like the sort of album where you just want to tell everyone about it, but you just know that a lot of people are just going to pass this one by. I'm sure of it, even on the label they're on, just because it is so abrasive sounding. It's so fucking good. Oh man, it's that way where if you had a fetish for fucking a cheese grater, you know it's going to hurt, but it's also going to make you happy. So there we go. You can use that in your press release, like fucking a cheese grater. Painful but pleasurable at the same time. We've been away for a couple of weeks. I keep saying this in every video. We've been away for a couple of weeks. I've been alone with no one to talk to about music.
Kyle, anything you'd like to add to that?
I'm gonna put my cheese grater away. Never look at it the same way again, Kyle.
Never know. It's, I'm gonna get another one with no holes. I am not a fan of Conjurer. I am a super fan of Conjurer.
Oh, yay! He did it! Yeah. He did it! Yeah. He knew he's that motherfucker, so he is that Kyle.
Cheeky wee bastard.
Fuck mother. I mean, no, I mean, I hadn't heard Meyer, actually. I've always heard the name Conjurer floating around in the metal ether out there, you know, and sort of aware of who they were. But I thought, it's just one of those big bands, you know. They're all the same. They're not the same! Holy fuck.
Not the same.
I don't have too much more to add than what you two have said, except for holy fucking fuck. Like, this album is a holy fuck. There's just so much to take apart, but also...
Is that hole in a cheese grater by any chance?
Yeah, holy fuck.
Like it.
Yeah. It's like they do so many things, but it's not sporadic and it's not unfocused, and it's very well put together, really deliberately crafted. It's not like some other bands where they'll just take elements or whatever and just shove it in randomly. It's everything has its place, and like Duncan said, how the fuck did we get here? I don't know. I was along the way, but I'm happy about it. And just the first 3 tracks, you've got everything they've got to offer almost, but then they still manage to twist it around in different ways for the rest of the album, and it keeps you interested, and I really love it. And of course, it wouldn't be a Kyle segment without mentioning the production, which is damn near perfect. Absolutely.
Oh, natural.
Yeah, how metal should fucking sound with a bit of grit in it. You know, it's not perfect. It's clean and clear, and you can hear everything's going on. But there's not like the guitars aren't perfectly in their separate little box, and the bass isn't like compressed to death. And it sounds great, and I really love it. So congratulations to Will Putney on that one. I'm sure he had lots of input from the band because it sounds like how the band should sound. It's not like it does not sound like presets. Like we've mentioned a whole bunch of bands before, but this is a prime example of that kind of thing where you've engineered the songs to sound like how they should be. There's not like, oh yeah, what I usually do on guitar is blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, what should this guitar sound like? And those tones are fucking nuts.
Yeah, killer.
Yeah, so expertly crafted album from beginning to end. It goes up and down, and the ending is fantastic. So I like how they waited until track 3 to bring in that melody as well.
Yeah.
They didn't like shove it in your face like, no, we're going to beat you in the face first, then we're going to let it ride a little bit.
And they don't then like overdo it in the rest of the album. They could have like started throwing in melody everywhere, but they don't.
No.
Well, now that we know they can do it.
Yeah.
That's the thing, like, and it's really, really, really good. It's not like we're going to try and inject some kind of melody in there. It's not like that.
Yeah.
It's really, really, really fucking good. And if they wanted to, they could have an album laced with that, and it would sell a lot more. But it's just the perfect amount of it on the album. It's just so good.
Yeah, I think there's two of the guys, Brady and Dan, both do vocals. I don't know who does what, but fantastic job, guys. Well done.
Well, the tones, it's like there's one of their screams is noticeably more mid-range than the other one, and when they both come in together, I think it's On It Dwells. Like, this is a pet peeve of mine. And it was like initially when it came in, I was like, oh no, I don't know if I like that, but now it's like one of my favorite things about the album. The two vocals come in at the same time, and the deeper vocal can't hold the tone for as long as the other vocal above it, so that one kind of goes on a wee bit longer than the other one instead of being synced up. Which, from an OCD point of view, my eyes starts to twitch up. Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. Like, the first time I heard that, I was like, oh, I don't know about that. But the second time I heard that, I was like, all of the albums should just sound like that. Just do that.
It's two different people doing two very similar things, but it's still two people, so they do it differently, and I love it.
Yeah.
It's just like,
the it's not neat and orderly.
No. Neither is the rest of the album. Like,
this is true.
Fucking chords on this thing. It's just like, that sounds massive. There's like 18 notes in it, and none of them belong there.
No.
But somehow they made it sound like they do.
Yeah. Nice. So ratings for this new album from Conjurer.
Come on, Dave.
I found
Start your shite.
Hear me out. I found this album gets kind of deeper and deeper into your psyche, like on each listen. And I enjoyed the first spin, but now at like 5 or 6 listens in, I'm kind of infatuated with this album.
Yes, Dave.
And what I actually meant to say was, this for 52 minutes, it does not feel its length.
No.
Does not feel its length at all. Like, it doesn't feel like it outstays its welcome at all. The tracks, the flow of the tracks from one to the next, just perfect transitions. And when it got to the end, I wasn't like so exhausted that I couldn't listen to it again. I could easily listen to it again. Like, 52 minutes didn't feel like that at all. I couldn't find anything to dislike here at all. It ticked all the boxes for me. It's a 5 from me. Duncan?
It's a 5 for me. It's a genuine contender for me. I am all the chips are in on this one, and the keys to the car, keys to the house, the baby's been pushed across the table. You know what I mean? Like, here comes 2 chihuahuas and a pug. I am completely sold on this. This album to me is really exciting. This is like one of these ones that when you listen to, I genuinely, from the moment I spun it for the first time, I just wanted to talk about it. And those are the best sort of albums, because those are the ones that I know at the end of the year I'll still be just want to talk about it. Yeah, I'm with you. It now occupies a part of my brain. Having listened to it like 5 times, it's it's in there, it's locked in there. It's now got its own wing, its own annex of Duncan's brain, where it's set up shop at the moment. And yeah, I will return to this fucking loads this year. It's just a really, really exciting, really bleak, nasty piece of work. and it's worthy of every one of those 5 stars.
Indeed. Kyle, what's your score?
Trio, come on.
For you.
I'm going to
Real
come in marginally
The same.
above you guys. 5 out of 5 and a banana.
Cue the demographic thing, the little icon that appears at the bottom with a banana. If you can make flames shoot out, Donkey Kong this bitch.
Banana is Kyle. If you want a banana, you're getting a banana. Conjurer, Pathos, out on July 1st on Nuclear Blast. Links below to the Facebook, to the Bandcamp. Check this album out.
Don't sleep on it.
Do not sleep on it. If you thought Meyer was good, then you're in for a good time, my friend. That is the review. Thank you for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
I'm away to oil my cheese grater. You have to oil it first, otherwise it's just like sore.
Does that really make a difference? Does that really?
Well, it depends what you're doing with your cock afterwards. If you're putting on the barbecue, it's a little bit of... No? Anyone? No?
Like a diversion.
See, that's why like bananas, they're naturally slippery.
Oh, Jesus. Bye, folks.
Goodbye.